And we also would like to appreciate each one of you for continuing to journey with us together as we study the scriptures. There's nothing more better than to really feed on the Word of God during times, testing times like these. Now, if you recall, for those who've been watching the earlier episodes, I left the second part of Abraham's walk because last Sunday was Pentecost. And so we talked about that subject. I'd like to continue today on what I call the second leg of Abraham's walk. Now, in the first study that we did, you would remember some of the important principles that we have gained. Now, the journey begins with responding to the call. And when a person is called, the life is therefore a life of faith. And faith is expressed in worship. We also learn from that part how to let go and let God. One beautiful thing that we also learned from that first part of the study on Abraham's walk is that he continued to be a blessing to others or serving others. That was part and parcel of his walk with God. Now, what I'm dealing today is chapter 20 of Genesis to chapter 25. In these 6 chapters, we can learn some more lessons from Abraham's walk. I would like to divide these chapters into 2 main sections. Chapter 20 and 21, I would call that portion a study on the head of Abraham. But chapter 22 to chapter 25 is a study, or it's about the heart of Abraham. Now let's look at the first part, the head of Abraham. Now in chapter 20, he's been traveling, and so let's just read a few verses beginning verse 1. Now Abraham moved on from there in the region of the Negev and lived between Kadesh and Shur. For a while he stayed in Gerar. And there Abraham said to his wife Sarah, "She is my sister." Then Abimelech, king of Gerar, sent for Sarah and took her. Okay, we see here Abraham frightened or scared, if you will. He was afraid because of his wife Sarah. Sounds like a repetition of the story you have read before, but here it's a different context. He was afraid of his wife, so they cook up a lie or a half-truth that she was just a sister. Abimelech, the king of Gerar, heard about these 2 foreigners who have come to their place. So he called, let's read the next following verses. Then Abimelech, king of Gerar, sent for Sarah and took her. But God came to Abimelech in a dream one night and said to him, "You are as good as dead because of the woman you have taken. She is a married woman." Now Abimelech, this is the beauty, in this dream, God came and Abimelech also had a conversation with God. Now Abimelech had not gone near her, so he said, "Lord, will you destroy an innocent nation?" Think about that, an innocent nation. Did he not say to me, "She is my sister"? And then she also said, "He is my brother"? I have done this with a clear conscience and clean hands. Clear conscience and clean hands. Then God said to him in the dream, "Yes, I know you did this with a clear conscience, and so I have kept you from sinning against me. That is why I did not let you touch her. Now return the man's wife, for he is a prophet, and he will pray for you, and you will live. But if you do not return her to, you may be sure that you and all yours will die." Let's read on. Early the next morning, Abimelech summoned all his officials, and when he told them all that had happened, they were very much afraid. Then Abimelech called Abram in and said, "What have you done to us? How have I wronged you that you have brought such great guilt upon me and my kingdom? You have done things to me that should not be done." Here Abimelech talking. And Abimelech asked Abram, "What was your reason for doing this?" And we find a key here. Abram replied, "I said to myself, there is surely no fear of God in this place, and they will kill me because of my wife. Besides, she really is my sister, the daughter of my father, though not of my mother, and she became my wife. And when God had made me wander from my father's household, I said to her, this is how you can show your love to me. Everywhere we go, say of me, he is my brother." Because of that fear, he cooked up a half lie or a half truth, as you can understand from the reading of the story. So in this case, we see Abram using his head. He used his head rather than his heart, because his conversation with Abimelech proved the point. Listen to what he said. He said, "I said to myself, there is surely no fear of God in this place, and they will kill me because of my wife." He had, or it was a decision made just or based on personal assumption. He had this fear that, an assumption rather, that his wife might be snatched away. Since he lied, he almost paid a price. But what Abimelech said to Abram indicated that God also is still in control. And God speaks to us. You know, we have read that portion of the conversation between Abimelech and God. He was innocent. And he talked about the whole town, the whole city, the whole kingdom being innocent. So what's the lesson that we learn here? Don't prejudge people just because they're different. Secondly, we see here also that a white line, we have what we call the black line, the white line. A white line does not really help. So the question is, why did Abraham lie? It was out of fear. And when he made that decision and agreed with his wife to call her his sister, that was an action, that was a decision based on emotions. To be precise, it was out of an emotional fear. The fear was unfounded, as we can see from the story. The people were not as bad as he thought. And let's look at verses 14 and 15. Then Abimelech brought sheep and cattle and male and female slaves and gave them to Abram, and he returned Sarah, his wife, to him. And Abimelech said, "My land is before you. Live wherever you like." To Sarah, he said, "I'm giving your brother 1,000 shekels of silver. This is to cover the offense against you before all who are with me. You are completely vindicated." This man-made disaster was averted because of God's grace and goodness. God, in his grace and in his goodness, protected Abimelech from sinning. Abraham almost invited disaster. And what we can learn from Abimelech, we can also learn in this case from Abraham. Never judge the book by its cover. You can see the heart of Abimelech in this chapter, but you also see the head of Abraham in this very chapter. So what lesson do we learn from the mistake that he made? I have a quotation I want to read to you. It says, "We all make mistakes, have struggles, and even regret things in our past. But you are not your mistakes, you are not your struggles, and you are here now with the power to shape your day and your future." Thank the Lord that Abraham learned from his mistakes. Okay, in chapter 21, it's a record of the birth of Isaac. He was the promised son. But the birth of this promised son caused some mixed feelings. When you read on in the story, you see that Hagar's son, Ishmael, has grown up as a little young boy. And it recorded there that when he saw Isaac, he laughed. What made him do that? Probably the mother sowed some seed of discord in the heart of this innocent child. It seems to me like she refused to accept the fact that Abraham fathered both these boys. She failed to acknowledge the fact that as a father, he can equally treat them as his sons. Seems like Hagar seemed to have forgotten her place. We see the human side of things. When we look at the human side of things, wasn't it an arrangement between Sarah and Abraham to help give Abraham a son? But the moment she became pregnant, in the first part of the story we see, she began to despise her mistress. And Sarah gave her a hard time that she fled and left. But it was an angel who sent her back to Sarai at that point, with a word of promise from God. But at this point when Isaac was born, she created a tension that led to her ultimate eviction. But as we read on, we see that God is still in ultimate control. God is still in ultimate control. We come to the part from verse 22 down to the end of chapter 21. That Abimelech made a treaty with Abraham. Let me just read a portion, a few verses from 22. "At that time, Abimelech and Phicol, the commander of his forces, said to Abraham, 'God is with you in everything you do. Now swear to me here before God that you will not deal falsely with me or my children or my descendants. Show to me and the country where you are living as an alien the same kindness I have shown to you.' Abraham said, 'I swear it.'" Abimelech has a lesson to teach us. Abimelech still, in spite of the fact of what Abraham did, he still recognized that God's hand was on Abraham's life. Despite that he cheated, or despite the fact that he was cheated by this very person, he still saw something beyond him. Often we judge the book by the cover. But thankfully, that was not Abimelech. He could have been disheartened, or even he could have been bitter and angry with Abraham of what he did, of the lie that he lied. But he still saw God's hand upon this man, asking him to bless him. Because God has placed Abraham in a position of being a channel of blessing. The lesson we learn here is that God can still work with those who trust Him more in their hearts than in their heads. But at the same time, God is still at work, and He still can work with those who trust more on their heads rather than on their hearts. Because God called Abraham. Now, coming to chapter 22 to 25 is the second part of a study, the heart of Abraham. In chapter 22, the very heading in your English Bible says, the test, or God tested Abraham. You know the story, He asked Abraham to sacrifice his son, Isaac, the very promised son. But as you read the chapter carefully, without any hesitation, Abraham responded to this challenge of God. This was a test. Now you may ask, or we can ask the question, if God is all-knowing, why did He have to test Abraham? Well, I can say, the test was not about God, but it was about Abraham. You know, it's just like an examiner giving questions to the students. The questions are not for the teacher, it's for the students. Abraham needed to learn something. This test that God put him to is a test about his loyalty and commitment. Was he still committed to the call? And was he still loyal to the friendship and relationship with God, with the God who called him? And the beauty of this was, after Abraham obeyed God, went to the place to sacrifice Isaac. Just before that, when he reached the regions of Moriah, he asked the two young men, his servants, to stay behind. But he made a statement very, very important for us to remember. Because verse 9 says, when they reached the place God had told him about, Abraham built an altar there and arranged the wood on it. So let's go back a little bit. He said here, this verse 5, he said to his servants, stay here with the donkey while I and the boy go over there. We will worship and then we will come back to you. This is the beauty of the heart of Abraham. That when God asked him to do something that is unimaginably possible, something that it's beyond our human reason to subscribe, to submit to, he was willing to obey God. And when he reached that place, he told these folks, you stay here, I and the lad will go yonder to worship. He looked at that test as his act of worship to God. And because he obeyed God, you know, he took Isaac up, and as he laid him on, tied his hands, he lay him at the altar, pull out his knife. At that point of time, the angel of God shouted, calling upon Abraham and asking him to stop. God provided miraculously a lamb in his son's place. But look at what he says from I want to read verse 15 down. The angel of the Lord called to Abraham from heaven a second time and said, I swear by myself, declares the Lord, that because you have done this and have not withheld your son, your only son, I will surely bless you and make your descendants as numerous as the stars in the sky and as the sand on the seashore. Your descendants will take possessions of the cities of their enemies, and through your offspring, all nations on earth will be blessed because you have obeyed me. Then Abraham returned to his servants, and they set off together for Beersheba, and Abraham stayed in Beersheba. What's the lesson we learn from this part? God communicates at a human level and in human language for the sake of Abraham. That was the message. that God wanted Abraham to understand. He obeyed God thoroughly in this case, and because of that, God sent the second message through this angel about what will happen after that. He will receive greater blessings, and he will become a blessing to others. And not only to others, but others also will be blessed because of Abraham. Friends, sometimes our obedience matters, not just for us, but also for the sake of others. Now, quickly move on to chapter 23. It's just a record of the death of Sarah after having lived for 125 years. One lesson, small lesson we can see here, is that Abraham gave her a decent burial in the place of his choice. Let's move to chapter 24. In chapter 24, we see here Abraham was concerned for the continuity of the generation, looking around at the people who were with him in those days. Where he were, he was concerned lest his son Isaac would marry the women of those places. So 24 is a story of Isaac and Rebekah. Here we read how Abraham delegated his servant with a task to finding a wife for his son from his own country and relatives. The chief servant was on a mission. And in that story we see that he prayed to God for guidance and how to know and find the right person. Now, he put a test when he reached the land while resting by the spring where people came to draw water. He asked God for a favor, that the woman who was willing to give him a drink when asked, and who is also ready to provide water to the 10 gifts-laden camels. I don't know how many gallons of water each camel would drink, but 10 camels. That if she's willing to also give water to these 10 camels, she would be the one. Quite a test. But as he prayed, things happened just as he prayed. And then this girl, she did what he asked of her. And then after that, he asked whose daughter she was. And when she told who she was, there's a point mentioned there, the servant of Abraham worshipped God. Why did he worship God? Because he realized how God orchestrated the events. Then this girl invited her to her house, and the family members understood that he was a man sent with a mission by his master Abraham, their relative. So he spent the night with them, and the next day her brother and her mother tried to persuade him to stay for 10 more days. Abraham's servant refused to stay back and was ready to return. They still wanted Rebekah to stay a few more days. So they said, in that case, if you're not staying back, you're wanting to go, let's ask the girl. And they asked Rebekah if she is willing to go, and she too wanted no more delay. So here we see Rebekah in the story traveling with this servant of Abraham back to where Abraham and Isaac lived. And upon reaching the land, when she saw Isaac, and let me just briefly put it this way, everything clicked. So Isaac took her to be his wife. Now we move on to chapter 25. And in chapter 25, I just want to concentrate on the first 11 verses. Because in these 11 verses, it's the record of the last days of Abraham. And you will read there how he gives gifts, precious gifts, to his other sons from the concubines that he had. But it also says that he finally left everything that he had to Isaac. Then he breathed his last. His sons, Isaac and Ishmael, buried him. So, as we wrap up the story of Abraham, I want to leave here, I want to share with you 6 important lessons for our lives. From the story about the head of Abraham, from the head of Abraham and the heart of Abraham. 6 things that we learn and apply to our lives. Number 1, learn to use your head correctly. Don't be too logical to ignore the spiritual. When you learn how to use your head properly, we will learn how to relate with others. So I would say, don't prejudge people, but learn to see the value in them. Abram almost missed Abimelech's goodness. Number 2, let the head, our head, when I say head, I mean our thinking process, our logic, our power to reason. Let the head accept the lordship of God and the headship of Christ. His lordship and his headship. Thirdly, when you decide things, let me put it this way, decide matters keeping the heart at the center. Don't just decide because you're bound to make decisions. Don't decide just because you're forced. Don't decide just because you feel. Let the heart be at the center. Number 4, in relationships, the heart should come first. God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son. The heart of God was the center, the love of God which is at his heart was the very center, the very core reason for sending his Son. In relationships, the heart should come first. Number 5, the good things done to others should be expressions of the heart. Let them be the expressions of the heart. That's why Jesus said, let your light shine in the dark, so that when people see your good deeds, they will praise your heavenly Father. We don't do good things for accolades. We don't do good things for popularity, for our name to go up the chart. No. It's an expression of worship. 6, leaving a legacy is what the heart and the head should go together. We have to learn to see things from the correct perspective. When leaving a legacy, don't just let the head, but let the head and the heart go together. I like this beautiful quote I found, and it says, the past is your lesson. The present is your engine. The future is your motivation. Now, I close with the words of Jesus where he said in John 4, they that worship the Father must worship in spirit and in truth. And I think that's very, very important for us to understand. Because when we worship in spirit and in truth, it is the worship of the head and the heart together. May the Lord bless. May we learn from Abraham that our hearts and our heads are totally surrendered to God. God bless you. Shall I pray? Father, we thank you again for the meditation of your word, and we pray that your light will continue to shine in the dark places of our lives. Lord, so that we can learn to change and be willing to live the life that is pleasing unto you. Lord, that we will learn to also live and correct ourselves even from the lessons we've learned today. Lord, that we will trust you trust your guidance in every way. I pray that you bless each one of us. And may we continue to live under your lordship and under your headship. For we ask all these in the blessed name of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ.